The hum of the engine had been my only companion for hours. Now, even that was gone, replaced by a silence so complete it felt like a weight pressing down on me. I'd made a wrong turn somewhere, a stupid mistake on a road trip that was supposed to be about finding myself, not losing myself entirely. The GPS had died an hour ago, and the paper map was a relic I couldn't decipher in the fading light. That's when I saw it, a flicker of civilization through the dense trees, the town of Havenwood. At least that's what the faded moss-covered sign said. Relief washed over me, a cool wave in the humid evening air. I pulled my car onto the main street, the tires crunching softly on gravel. But the relief quickly curdled into unease. The street was empty. Not just quiet, but void. No cars parked along the curb, no lights on in the quaint storefronts, no stray cats darting through the alleys. I killed the engine, and the silence returned deeper this time. I stepped out, and the absence of sound was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. No birds chirping their evening songs, no wind rustling the leaves on the ancient oak trees lining the street. It was like the entire world was holding its breath. My stomach rumbled, a stark, vulgar noise in the stillness. A diner stood on the corner, its neon sign dark, but the name, The Haven, was still visible in peeling paint. It looked like my only option. I walked towards it, my footsteps echoing unnaturally. The air was thick, heavy with the smell of pine and something else. Something old and dusty, like a forgotten attic. The closer I got to the diner, the more the feeling grew, a primal sense of being watched. I scanned the windows of the houses, dark and vacant, but the feeling persisted. The diner door was unlocked. I pushed it open, and a loud, drawn-out creak sliced through the silence, making me jump. The smell inside was even stronger stale coffee and something vaguely sweet, like old perfume. My eyes adjusted to the dim light filtering through the grimy windows. The place was a time capsule. Tables were perfectly set with red checkered tablecloths, silverware gleaming faintly. A half-eaten slice of pie sat on the counter, a fork resting beside it, as if the person had just stepped away for a moment. But there was a fine layer of dust over everything, a gray blanket tucking the scene into a long sleep. "Hello?" I called out, my voice sounding small and foreign. The only answer was the echo of my own word, bouncing off the linoleum floors and vinyl booths. I walked further in, my sneakers squeaking softly. The walls were covered in photographs. Black and white portraits of smiling townsfolk, group pictures from picnics and parades. They looked happy, normal. But as I moved, their eyes seemed to follow me. It was a trick of the light, I told myself, a product of my overactive imagination. But I couldn't shake the feeling of 100 unseen gazes fixed on my back. I moved behind the counter, hoping to find a phone, a clue, anything. The coffee in the pot was cold and had turned to sludge. The cash register was open, a few dusty bills still inside. This wasn't a robbery. This was an abandonment. A mass exodus. But why? What could make an entire town just vanish? I ran a hand through my hair, my own anxiety starting to feel like a physical presence in the room. This was wrong. All of it was deeply, fundamentally wrong. I turned back to the main dining area, my gaze sweeping across the empty tables one last time. That's when I saw it. On a small, two-person booth in the corner, a piece of paper. It was different from the neat place settings. A napkin held down by a salt shaker. Drawn by an unexplainable urge, I walked over. My heart was thumping a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I lifted the salt shaker, the glass cold against my fingertips. The napkin was covered in writing, a messy, frantic scrawl in faded blue ink. Just a few words, but they were enough to make the blood freeze in my veins. The handwriting was shaky, desperate. It read, "They don't like strangers." A floorboard creaked upstairs. My head snapped up, eyes wide, staring at the ceiling. The sound was distinct, undeniable. It wasn't the old building settling. It was a footstep. I wasn't alone. The silence I had mistaken for emptiness was just the quiet of the hunt. The feeling of being watched wasn't paranoia. The photos on the wall, the smiling faces. Were they from the note? Or were they the victims? My breath hitched. I backed away from the table, my eyes darting around the diner, which no longer felt like a time capsule but a trap. The sweet smell in the air now seemed cloying, sickening. Every shadow seemed to deepen, to stretch towards me like grasping fingers. Another creak from upstairs, closer to the stairwell at the back of the kitchen. They were coming down. I had to get out. Now, I spun around and bolted for the door, my mind screaming. The ominous creak of the hinge as I threw it open was the starting pistol for a race I didn't understand. I burst out into the twilight, the heavy, silent air feeling even more suffocating than before. My car seemed a mile away. I fumbled for my keys, my hands shaking so badly I could barely get them out of my pocket. As I ran, I risked a glance back at the diner. In the grimy second-floor window, I saw it. A face, pale and gaunt, just a silhouette against the darkness within. It wasn't there for more than a second, but the image was burned into my mind. A face with no discernible features, just an impression of ancient hunger and profound sadness. I finally reached my car, wrenched the door open, and threw myself inside, jamming the key into the ignition. The engine sputtered, coughed, and for one heart-stopping moment, I thought it wouldn't start. Please, please, please. It roared to life. I didn't bother turning on the headlights. I slammed the car into reverse, tires screeching on the gravel, and spun it around, flooring the accelerator. I drove out of Havenwood with a desperation I'd never known. I didn't look in the rearview mirror. I couldn't. I didn't want to see the figures I imagined were now standing on the main street, watching me go. I didn't want to see their eyes. I just drove, pushing the car faster and faster down the dark, winding road, away from the town that time forgot, away from the silence and the note and the face in the window. I never found out who they were or what happened to the people in the photos. And I never ever want to. Some places are lost for a reason, and some secrets are best left buried in the dust. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please consider liking and subscribing for more journeys into the unknown. Stay safe out there.